Heather Ashley, and welcome to another episode of Women of Her Story, a podcast dedicated to celebrating women who have made or are making their mark on our society. Today, I have with me Broadway performer Jennie Harney Flemming, whose most recent credit includes none other than Hamilton, an American musical. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jennie.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Heather.
Of course. So how is life treating you these days?
I mean, life is good, we're all quarantined, we're all inside, and we're all navigating the scary world that's outside. But all things considered, I have to count my blessings and remember, it could be worse,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So why don't we just dive right in? What has it been like being part of the Hamilton family?
It sounds a little cliche, but really the Hamilton family is truly, truly, truly what it is. It's a family of people. It's a community of people that spans across the entire United States, from all of the 5 different companies to to the fans, to the fan base.
Mm-hmm.
It really is a tight-knit group of people that function predominantly from a space of love and community and environment. So that would be what I would think is one of the biggest impacts that it's had for me personally. Mm-hmm. Because so often, the bottom line is that this is a profession, this is a job.
Right.
And you're going into a space to execute a number of tasks that's being asked of you. But when you're able to walk away from that or to exist in that world and have gained so much on a personal level in terms of relationship and friendship and relatability, mm-hmm. It really turns into, another kind of family. Based on that personal side of the experience itself, it's made an indelible mark on me that'll, I imagine, last me for the rest of my life.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have a unique role in being the international swing for the Schuyler sisters. What does that mean?
It wasn't international. I didn't go to the London company because they're not covered under the umbrella of Actors Equity. Mm-hmm. So that's a whole nother union out there. Therefore, this job couldn't cross that jurisdiction.
Okay.
But for the first 2 years, I'm going to complete my 3rd year. I will be on a part of the Hamilton family. May 7th or 9th of this year will make my 3rd year. So the first 2 years were spent as a universal Schuyler sister. And basically what that means is it's solely for a principal. So therefore it becomes a standby position rather than a swing, though the functionality mm-hmm. is the same. It's the terminology is different because of because one is principal and one is ensemble,
right?
Inclusive. And it was a lot of fun jumping around because it was just the 3 sisters, but it was any of the companies that were existing at that time, because mm-hmm. as I was there, more and more companies added on and it continued to grow.
Right.
I had a blast. It was wonderful because, each cast was so different. But of course, the consistency or the thing that remained the same was the material of the show.
Right.
And it was just so fun to jump around from one group of people to one group of people, or one family to another family. And, you'd be like the visiting cousin that just kind of pops in every once in a while. And know that there's relationships there from people that you've, done past shows with, new people that you're meeting, young people who are just breaking into the industry for the first time, people who have been in the industry for a long time, that you have a list of friendships, or groups with. It was hard. It was very, very hard for a number of reasons. But it was also a lot of fun. But it's also, for someone, I think it's a job that is very good for somebody who is a little younger. And I'm not aging myself. It's just, I've done bus and truck, I've done touring, I've done I've spent a lot of time on the road, and I'm not really inclined in that direction naturally. Like it's, I'm a homebody. I thrive much better when I'm in my own home environment.
Right.
Some people love being on the road, and I think that it's a kind of job that it's good for that kind of personality, because it can be very wearing to have to drop everything at the drop of a dime, and ship off for an indefinite period of time, to be with a group of people doing something that you don't know what you're going to be doing till you get there. And even when you get there, you're still figuring out what the need is. You know what I mean? You may be shipped out there because, one sister had a loss in the family, but while you're there, you discover, oh, well, this one is sick, or this one's been holding out because, they knew that something else was happening, or this one gets injured. So, I mean, it's not always that way. It's just, it has that unpredictable nature where sometimes you don't know, or problems don't really arise until you get there. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then all of a sudden the need changes. And because the need changes, the length of time that you're with that company changes. And, and it's just part of what you have to know you're signing up for when you say, yes, I agree to be a universal swing or a universal standby. But I did that for 2 years, and it was a lot of fun. There were a lot of pros, a lot of cons, but we focus on the positive, because for this position, I was definitely in the best position I could be in. You know what I mean?
Right.
It wasn't, forgive me, I don't say this to talk down on anyone, but it wasn't a CETA contract or a lower tier contract. It was one, top tier contract with one of the best shows in the world, and they know how to take care of their people.
Right.
That being said, it's still crazy. It's still madness.
Yeah. Did you ever have days when you would like be one sister one night and then like 2 days later you're a totally different one?
Some days, yes. I think that the stage managers really tried to be an advocate for me when it came to that, just because when you go to different companies, there are differences from one show to the next. The idea, it would be very ideal if everywhere you went, it was exactly the same. But, things are different for a variety of reasons, whether that's the size of the stage or the set itself. Sometimes the sets had to be a little bit amended from the Broadway stage because they are touring, which was different, of course, from the Chicago stage, in terms of the depth of the stage.
Right.
You know what I mean? Things just change just within the stage itself, not to mention that you're performing with strangers as if you've known these people for your entire life, and this is the man that I fell in love with, and you know what I mean, like you have to kiss people that you ain't seen but 5 minutes ago, and you know what I mean, and you have to carry your weight as a professional actress and convincingly and seamlessly as best you can, blend into something that has been established for a long time, energy and nuances and stylistic differences and not be thrown off by those things, and still be a freestanding, strong member, because you're a principal now. You're not somebody that can blend into the background. Not that there's much of that in this show anyway, because the swings, all are very heavily featured.
Right.
Or the ensemble, I should say. So it's just, it is not easy, and it is not simple.
Right.
But if you focus on the fact that the pros outweigh the cons, I think you'll be all right.
So you said you did that for 2 years. What was there a shift in your role in the third year?
Yeah. Well, kind of when things they came out with, I believe, the company that started in Puerto Rico. That happened around the January season. And there was just a lot of switching within the world of Hamilton itself. And with that, they were taking people from other companies, or people's, contracts were ending, and people were staying, people were going. So the whole entire construct of the Hamilton family went through its own changes around the time when my contract was also up for renegotiations. And because they were trying to figure out, okay, how do we resecure our companies, they decided, and simultaneously with my requesting, that I expressed to them I'd like to stay in New York. I think I've done this for 2 years. I love my job, but I'm also a married woman. I got married while I was touring and doing the Universal thing in Hamilton. My husband, who is also a performer, travels a lot. And we just, the first year of marriage was spent, 90% of the time was spent away from one another.
That's tough.
It was very, very difficult on a personal level. But we both, like I said, we're both experienced in the industry and have been doing it for quite some time. So we were accustomed to the touring thing independent of one another. But now that we've got this new season of our lives happening, it means, okay, how do we balance? How do we find this new balance? And so I asked them, I said, look, I really love it. If an opportunity opens up for me to be in New York and only in New York, I don't care if it's standby, I don't care if it's an onstage sister replacement, I don't care what it is. But if I could just stay here, I would really appreciate it. And it really just has to do with God's timing, because simultaneous with my contract and me expressing those desires, they were expanding Hamilton in a way that meant that they felt the need to reevaluate the construct of how they took care of their coverage, because were adding another company. I think at the time it was the Broadway company, the Chicago company, the Philip tour, another tour, I can't remember the name. And then they were opening, on top of all of that, they were opening the Puerto Rico tour.
Okay. Yeah.
So everything was just compounded on top of one another. The Angelica tour was still running. It was Philip, Angelica, and now the Puerto Rico tour. And because they were adding another show and taking so many people from existing companies, they were saying, okay, having one Universal Sky, like they have like 4 Universal swings to cover all the companies. But to only have one Universal Skylar sister to cover all 5 companies, no longer 4. It was a bit of a thing. And what they expanded all 5 of the companies. And the challenge becomes audition seasons and how those things overlap with one another in terms of replacing different people in the cast. So if every January a different company of Hamilton is being cast, then that means, a year from now, next January, when you've just recast a new production, you're also replacing people from the previous production. So it was just so much overlapping of casting,
right,
that they would always have the same problem around the same time of year. Every year or every 6 months, every January, every September, there was always overlapping companies with the same need. In terms of having that extra coverage. And also, this is a hard show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a hard show.
It is.
So, there's a lot of burnout on this show. It's 3 hours long. The majority of the company is on stage for the entire show. Maybe they get a 5-minute break here or there, but people don't really leave the show for any serious length of time.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think that once they started getting a better rhythm for what the need, or a better understanding for the need, they decided, you know what, let me buffer up the cast themselves. And they started adding girls or standbys to the actual casts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they just kind of beefed up and that took
Yeah.
away the need for the universal position. And then that freed me up to be able to be with the Broadway company because they had another young lady leave. And then I was able to stay put, and they had the coverage that they needed to cover the rest of the companies.
Oh, good. I'm so glad all the stars aligned for that perfect timing for you to be able to negotiate what you needed as a performer, as a person.
Or, I mean, yeah.
Has it been smooth sailing to get to where you are now, or have you come across some difficult times?
To get where I am now? Elaborate on that.
To get where you are now, just in your career, in your personal life in general, just to be the person that you are now. You know, was it always easy stepping, or was it ever easy stepping, or
never, nothing. you know the answer to that question already. It's never easy. It's always challenging. It's always an uphill battle. It's always a juggle. It's always counting your blessings in the midst of adversity and fear. It's never not that. You just get better at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
It's never just smooth sailing. Like, you have seasons where, you don't have the same struggles you had the prior season. You know what I mean? But that always presents something else. When I used to talk about when I first started, like getting some advancement in the industry, is that when you have time, you don't have the money. And when you have the money, you don't have the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The duality, you're always juggling. You're always trying to figure out how to do it better. Balancing your professional and your personal life, and continuously growing, continuously, figuring out what's next, and, and also being grateful for where you are in the moment. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Especially in an industry that perpetuates that you should always be busy.
Yeah. Like if you're not booked, or if you're not in class, then you're doing all these things wrong, and you're like, but I can't do everything all at the same time. Like,
I understand that sentiment to an extent, because it's a very old school way of thinking, of not making excuses for yourself. And there's a lot from old school that I wish was still part of the construct of how we move forward and how we think and how we approach our work now. But I also feel like there tended to be a bit of an imbalance in terms of the mental health aspect of it. Just in society, period, that now we have such extremes in our industry, where we have people who, I mean, let's be honest, Broadway is full of drama queens and people who, you know what I mean? Like, I myself am a drama queen. Like, it takes a minute for me to realize, okay, girl, you're overreacting. Okay, let's take a log off the fire. Nobody's going to die. Like, calm down.
Right.
But everything is so dramatic, and we feel everything so deeply. And that's what makes us good about what we do, is because we are these sensitive people. And the fact that we are so tapped in and connected to our emotions that we can go back and replicate an emotion at the drop of a dime.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that's what's required of us, right? So then, when you're in an industry that's requiring you to be so emotionally vulnerable at all times, to then have to turn around and be able to think logically, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a little tough there.
I mean, it's like, schizophrenic right there.
Yeah. Sometimes you'll step back and hear yourself, and you're like, oh, I was going in about that bottle of Coca-Cola there.
Right.
You're like, why do I all of a sudden care so much about this?
Right, exactly. And I mean, and that's fine. The thing is that, like, give yourself grace, give yourself permission, but also do the self-work. Like, do pay attention enough to who you are and where you're putting your energy, where you're investing your words and your thoughts and your energy, to be able to grow as a person and hold yourself accountable without having to, without comparison. You know what I mean? It's not about what she's doing or what he's doing. It's not about this person got more than I did, or this person didn't have to work as hard as I did. It's not about that. It's about, because let me tell you, the minute that you get hung up on that, you are on a downward spiral that doesn't have a bottom. Okay? When you start thinking about comparison, it will just kill you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you just gotta focus in on, okay, this is my story. This is my life. This is how things have happened to me. How do I do the best that I can? And that be enough.
Yeah. Absolutely. As a woman of color in the performing arts, have you ever felt like you've been dismissed for a certain role because of your skin? And did that bring you way down, or did that make you push harder?
I'm not a pushy person. I've learned that, when you want something too bad, oftentimes you get so caught up on your desire for something that you start to force things. And you never want to force something. I believe very heavily in something coming to you with ease. Definitely hard work, but not with tension, not with a massive grip. So first off, I just, say that that's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned in my life is, one, comparison is the thief of joy. And if it's for you, it's for you. It won't miss you. You know what I mean? So I'm a big person of faith. I'm a big person of, kind of trying to go with the flow, even though I am, neurotic in my own ways. I've had to learn how to calm my own anxieties, to be able to look around at my circumstances and know that my story is uniquely my own. And just because I missed something that I wanted, that just means it wasn't for me. It was for someone else, and I should be happy for whoever it was for. So I say all that to say, in terms of being a woman of color, navigating an industry that is or does have a history of catering to a lighter hue, it's always a juggle. And I find that the best way to deal with it, that I've found, is just talking to your peers, and having a community of a wide range of different types of people to have the conversation, and not to prove a point, but just to hear how the different experiences that people have, the different things that people see when they go in and out. Because, unfortunately, Broadway or musical theater is so based around protecting the perspective of the viewer.
Right.
And so if there is an image that has been stereotyped or perpetuated by society or the media, that becomes their understanding of how a group of people is. And because we do like archetypes in theater, because we do like, kitschy things in theater, a lot of times what's asked of you is for you to, a lot of my friends have experienced being asked to be more Black. And how that transpires a lot of times is be what I interpret, I the director, I the audience member, am comfortable with seeing a Black person, how I perceive them to behave. Right. Which could mean any range of things. It could mean be more angry. It could be more ghetto. It could be less articulate. It could, you know what I mean? Yeah. And once you start trying to say, well, what are you trying to say? Once you start, investigating that, then you have to start making choices about, your role in the industry, and like, am I a sellout? Am I, catering? Am I, So that's one avenue that people of color often have to navigate, because it's not just African American, as I am. I know I've spoken to my friends who are Asian American and Latino American, and you know what I mean, or any ethnic background has a similar challenge. Another challenge that starts to happen for women of color, and specifically Black women, I find, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know this for any other nationality, so I can't speak to that, but is colorism,
Mm-hmm.
which is basically, you know, the color, the hue of your skin, how light you are, how dark you are, and how that relates to what people expect your behavior to be.
Mm-hmm.
Or you being racially ambiguous, so you're able to be cast in something that, you know, a Black woman can be cast as a Latino woman in a show because she's fair enough, or vice versa. Like Latino woman can be cast as a Black, you know, in a role that is traditionally Black, because, you know, Black women range so much between dark and light, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and body type starts to play a factor, and, you know, just it really is a slippery slope to
Mm-hmm.
how many different ways, you know, race can have an impact on your experience in the industry. Racism, or not necessarily racism, but racial
profiling, maybe
profiling, or stereotyping, or, you know, social views, you know, and it's a pain in the ass to have to navigate.
Yeah.
You know, but
I can't imagine.
You get accustomed to it, which I can't say is necessarily a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
But you're also not alone in it, which I also can't say is a good thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I
Yeah.
do think that we are starting to have conversations,
Mm-hmm.
and there are starting to be people like the creative team of Hamilton who want to give an opportunity to break down those stereotypes and archetypes, and you know, it's only going to get better the more we see work like that.
Yeah, absolutely. When Hamilton came out, did you know that you wanted to be a part of that show?
No, you know, honestly, I something that I'm not very good with is when I see something that has a lot of hype around it. You know what I mean? I'm just kind of like,
You're a skeptic.
You know, I can be a bit of a skeptic, but not because I'm not interested, but just because I don't like other people to tell me how to like something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's kind of like when Scandal was out and everybody was like, oh my God, girl, did you watch Scandal? And I'm like, I'm not watching Scandal right now, because I know if I watch it while everybody is watching it, and I go online and I see all these, you know, spoilers, I'm going to be influenced about how to feel about something. Mm-hmm. As opposed to, no, I'm gonna wait until I can binge this on my own, and then you know, and then I'll come up with my own feedback that's not, you know, tainted.
That's me with Walking Dead.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm that's just me though. Like and also I don't, like I said, part of my process to kind of remaining free and remaining in a mindset of like, you know, what's for me is that I kind of put some distance between myself and things, sometimes too much distance. I will say that that's a bad habit of mine, is that sometimes I, you know, so much so, you know, back off from things in a way that I don't realize how much I'm putting it off. And it's doing me a disservice, you know?
Right.
Because had I been more open, then if I had actually like given myself permission to like or investigate Hamilton, you know, without there being an audition connected to it, unfortunately, I wouldn't have been up until 3 o'clock in the morning trying to study the material. You know what I mean?
Right.
I would have had a familiarity with it. But, you know, I find for myself, I know that this is my habit, is that when I find something that I really, really like, I dream about it. I talk about it. I analyze it. I go on and on and on and on and on. And sometimes what's better for me in this industry, because, you know, how auditions go, because you got to go in there fully invested, and then you got to walk out of there like it didn't even happen. Yeah. You know what I mean? In order for you to be able to continue business as usual, you know, is you have to like give 100, 250% of yourself in a moment, and study and study and study and study. And then you have to walk away from it and throw it in the garbage. Yeah. Because otherwise you will obsess Me, I obsess. I think about it constantly. I just drive myself nuts because all I'm doing is thinking about, well, are they going to call? Well, how long are they going to call? Well, who's casting it? Well, when did the so-and-so get a call? Well, what is it for? And how, you know what I mean? And you just make yourself nuts. You drive yourself up a tree. So for me, the better way to deal with it is it's like, you know, if it comes across my desk, great. I look at it. Oh, this is great. This is fun. I like this. What do they want from me? This. They need these 5 things from me. Okay, let me go in this room and execute that stuff, and then let me walk away. You know what I mean? It's not the best tactic, but it's the one that I found to help me. I'll sit up there and I'll just make myself nuts. You know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what works for you works for you. Yeah. You know, and that's, you found a way to, you know, get through this really unstable, terrifying career in a way that you don't feel. It's when I always say this, when you put too high of stakes on one thing, and then it's the obsession thing where you're like, okay, this and this and this, and I love this, and I have to do this, and I have to be perfect. And then you're not having fun in whatever it is. If it's a presentation, if it's an audition, if it's like a piece of artwork that you're creating or a book that you're writing, you've put so much expectation on yourself that it's not fun. And then after it, you analyze every single thing that you perceive to have gone wrong. And that's just sucks.
It sucks. And I mean, and it doesn't get better. You just get used to it. You know what I mean? And, you know, you can go to the audition classes, which I think are very useful. And you can, you know, try all kinds of different tactics that you may find work better for you. But at the end of the day, you have to have amnesia. You have to figure out, how do I make this not so important to me that it consumes me and distracts me from everything else in life? Because I'll be, you know, I'll go and I'll audition at 9 o'clock in the morning somewhere, and I'll come back at 9 o'clock at night. I'm miserable. Because all I can think about that. And that's a whole day I wasted sitting on the couch biting my nails instead of, you know, going out to dinner with my husband, or, you know what I mean? Just living, investing or spending that time on my personal life to keep me happy. Like, we have to be able to balance being happy in this industry, you know?
Yeah. Do you have passions outside of the industry that you like to occupy your time with?
I mean, I don't, yes and no. Like, I feel like everything is kind of an extension of my artistic self.
Sure.
So if it's drawing or writing or songwriting or, you know, whatever, something creative, scrapbooking, you know, I mean, I don't really do a lot of other things. There are a lot of things that I do enjoy doing when I do them. But in terms of like having like other practices, there are lots of things that I would like to do.
Like what?
I would like to learn how to play the guitar. I asked my husband to buy me a guitar for my birthday. Have I picked it up yet? No. Do I think about it every day? I do. You know what I mean? But you know, it's. I know that when I do, it's going to be because I'm excited and I'm going to enjoy it. You know what I mean? I think that for me, it's more about keeping my options open, you know, to when I feel led to do something so that I can truly enjoy it because that's what I want at that moment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Rather than feeling like I should be being productive. I should be doing good. Because then I become a drill sergeant on myself. And then that's when the expectation that you were talking about starts to tick back in, you know, and that pressure starts, you know, I become, you know, my own worst critic. And if I'm investing my time to find a way to get myself free of that, or on a overall level, like I can feel free in life and feel free in the enjoyment of a variety of activities, that will serve everything that I eventually want to accomplish, you know? But I can't, like I said, ease for me, not tension, is I found is the better road to, you know, enjoying my life.
Yeah. Have you had the opportunity to work with someone that you had only dreamt you would?
Yes. These things always go over my head when And then I think back and I'm like, wow, I did do that. Oh yeah, I did work at this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Of course, they all escape me when people ask me those questions. But I mean, I think just the idea of this show in itself, like Lin-Manuel Miranda, and then
Right.
and you know, Joshua, people in the cast like Joshua Henry, or you know, folks like that, Montego Glover,
Yeah.
so many different performers, of course the creative team, like what the heck, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that in itself is just like, oh, just a little Andy Blake. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Where you're just like, oh, we're buds. It's no big deal, guys.
God. Just text them every once in a while. You know what I mean? Like the idea of having access to these people, and them being so, unguarded and saying, hey, you have my number. If you need anything, just let me know. Like the idea of that is kind of like, what the fuck? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For a loop a bit, but you have to, I don't know what you have to do. You have to stay calm and be human and not be crazy.
Yeah. Who is someone that's always inspired you?
I mean, I hate to say always, because there are just people that come in and out, or that you discover at
different
pinnacles
times,
or different times in your life when you didn't know you needed them. Like in high school, it was like India Ari, like, oh my God, this woman that is everything, and then in college it was like Ella Fitzgerald, and then so in terms of this profession, I have to say it's Audra McDonald. I mean, she's just masterful and represents everything that I hope to, even resemble in my career, whatever my career becomes, and whatever, roads it takes me down. I hope to be able to represent even just a resemblance of what she has attained already. And she's one of the people who made me confident, or made me feel like having a child, in an industry where it's almost, I won't say forbidden, but or it's not forbidden, it's not frowned upon, but it's not the most like,
right,
catered to choice, what I mean? It's not
I was gonna
norm.
ask you about that. Yeah.
You know what I mean? But people like her and Heather Headley, and so many others I could name. Bonita Hamilton, she's been over at Lion King for years. Chandra Prophet, and Stephanie even. She's a newer mom, but bottom line, she's a mom. And when I told everyone the news that I was pregnant, she was one of the first people to express, like, listen, I'm your advocate. If you need anything, you let me know. You know what I mean? Because
love
she
that.
gets it. She gets it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's scary. You know what I mean? Because you kind of feel like, and it's true, and I'm sure I'll feel much more this way when I get to the other side of, having this child and her becoming an integral part of my life and my everyday routine. And, and she informs me about, how we're going to get through this thing. I'm sure my perspective will change and become much more informed, but it's somehow people do it.
It happens,
It happens.
It sounds also like you've got a really supportive husband, and then you've got a supportive family in the Hamilton, group. And so I feel like that's so crucial in making you feel secure enough in this time in your life to make that decision.
And I think that's the difference. It's having the support and also being able to recognize it. Because sometimes people feel like they're alone in things, and that's because they're not looking to their left and to their right, and they don't feel like they can ask for help. But the fact is that, a lot of the things that we're experiencing, I hate to put it this way, especially at a time like this, but it's first world problems.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there are people in other places with different sets of circumstances who are able to navigate and make certain things work. Now, of course, that does not directly correlate with surviving the musical theater industry. By no means are those two things on the same plane, but there is an innate survival instinct that I think gets so segmented from, because we're in a society as Americans and as, you know, touchy-feely musical theater people where we lose sight of, wait a minute, we have capability, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We have options, we have things around us, we have support in one way or another. And if it's not support that comes from, you know, one place, you can look to Actors Federal, what is the name of it? Actors Fund.
Yeah.
You can look on, you know, you can join a Facebook group of Broadway moms. You can join, you know what I mean? Like we have resources that, I'm not saying that they're perfect. I'm not saying that they're bulletproof. I'm not saying that, you know, they can't and won't fail you from time to time. But I do think that if we choose that this is something that we want to do for ourselves, though equity does not have certain things like maternity leave and provision for stuff like that, there are avenues and ways to find like-minded people in a similar place as you, especially now in the age of social media. So I mean, it's scary, it's daunting, but if you're willing to embrace the support that is available to you, faulty as it may be, yeah, I think that there's a will, where there's a will, there's a way, you know?
Yeah. Has it been a little scarier being a first-time mom during COVID-19?
You know, I just have to pray every day. I really do. I have to keep my mind in check and pray constantly, because it's prior to COVID, I thought my biggest fear was the state of Black maternal health, African American women and their maternal health, because, you know, something that is only just starting to be talked about is the fact that Black women are 3 times more likely to die than a white woman.
Really?
Yes, from preventative measures, and from you know, just before we got on this call, I had to get my mind right because a young lady in the Bronx passed away because of medical malpractice, right after having to deliver emergency C-section, and that was due to, you know, neglect. And it's hard to call it neglect at a time when COVID is going on, and, you know, everybody is spent, every resource is being exhausted, all the staff is, you know, overworked and underfed and you know,
right,
exhausted, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
to an extent, you don't want to put that pressure on, you don't want to be unfair to the healthcare system because of the tremendous amount of pressure that they're under. But these statistics existed long before,
right,
you know what I mean? Before COVID was, you know, another reason for us to take even more precaution, you know, in this scenario. And so it is daunting. It is scary. And I don't know how to navigate it every day. But I do know that I have support, and I do know that I am looking for options, you know, and that just at some point just has to be enough for me to rest in. You know what I mean? I just have to, I have no other choice but to rest in faith and in my own efforts to chase down every, you know, option and lead to say, how can I be supported better? What can you do to ensure, because if it can be done for a person of a different complexion, it can be done for me. So tell me how. You know what I mean? And demanding that and pursuing that, and, you know, and safeguarding, you know, having the opportunities to look for a doula, or look for, you know, a midwife, or look for someone who can, you know, though at this time, because COVID is preventing people from being physically in the room.
Right.
You know, I mean, luckily certain hospitals are beginning to be more lenient with their protocol. But, you know, now that things are starting to ease, you know, I don't, you know, let's not get crazy, of course. You know, but it's a scary thing.
Yeah.
Childbirth is a scary thing on its own. When you layer in Black maternal health in America, it's even more scary. And when you layer in COVID, it's even more scary. And when you layer in laboring in New York City hospital, it's even more scary. So if I went down the what if tunnel, I would be very depressed.
Yeah.
But I can't do that.
No.
So it's a scary thing, and I appreciate any and all prayers and positive energies and spirits, because that's pretty much the only thing.
I'm sending you all my good vibes.
Come on, give me the good vibes, girl. Good vibes, good vibes.
Let's lighten things up a little.
Sure.
So that we can get your mind off of it, keep it from spiraling, at least for a couple more minutes. So do you have a favorite role that you've been able to play, Broadway or otherwise?
Honestly, no.
No?
And I think that's just because I feel like my dream role will be one that I create.
Oh, I love
that. I really want to be a part of an original cast. I really want to originate a role, not just one, not just two. I want to do it numerous times. You know, I want to do TV and film and voiceover, and I want to, I want to do it all. You know what I mean? I want to do character work. I want to do, I want to perform in a show that's predominantly catering to a Black story. I want to do something that's, colorblind casting. I want to do something fantasy. You know what I mean? I want to play an old crotchety woman. I want to play a 3-year-old girl,
Yeah.
I want to run the gamut, and I don't, not to say that there aren't brilliant opportunities to do all those things right now, but I feel like the thing that will really feed my soul will be when I get the opportunity to create something with a group of people, with a group of creatives that where we are finding things and we're figuring out, okay, how do we craft this, And I mean, don't get me wrong, that scares the shit out of me at the same time. Excuse me. You know what I mean? It's a scary experience to be that vulnerable, and there are definitely things about it that are just kind of like but at the same time, like, when you feel that sense of like, yes, I feel this in my bones, I get who this person is, and it's because I was a part of the process of creating it. There's something else about that I just gives me goosebumps more than anything else.
Yeah. Have you ever given thought to directing or like writing your own show?
Yes, I've when I was younger, I used to teach a lot of junior high school kids, and I would write shows for them, and I would direct them. And I do think that what I enjoy doing is teaching. So I feel like that is more of where I get my excitement from, is teaching and seeing a student get it, and learning a learning process, and going with them on that journey. That, I think, rather than getting to a point where I leave it in your hands and I walk away. I think that that's where, directing and the crossroads is probably what excites me the most, of the crossroads between directing and teaching. In terms of writing, I do write music, and I'm working on an album now that I'm hoping I'll be able to get out sometime in the fall. Of course, now with COVID, you have all the time in the world, but you can't get nowhere.
Yeah. You're like, I've written 4 albums now, just it's gonna be.
And this part goes like this. You're losing your mind here. Oh God. But and I've written songs that I feel would be good for a show. But I don't know that I have, and maybe it's just because I've never given myself permission to investigate this side of myself, but I don't know that I have the chops to write a play or a script necessarily. Maybe I could write an outline for one based off of, the songs that I'm writing, or maybe if someone was writing something and needed a song to fulfill a certain spot, I could do that. But I think that's something I would maybe explore at some point. Yeah, I don't know when in my life I would explore it. Maybe once I become a mom and that, whole realm of things starts to influence who I am. Maybe I'll have a different perspective. Yeah.
You were talking about teaching, and you do vocal coachings now. Is that also tied into you loving watching your students understand and things finally clicked? Is that why you started offering those services?
Yeah, I mean, I've taught probably since I was about 16 years old. When I used to teach, it was a musical theater after school program with junior high school students. And even to this day, these kids call me Miss Jennie, and I just love them so dearly. But and then from there I went on and taught a lot of not after school, but in addition to after school summer programs. That did a lot of, my father had his own theater company, and so I was one of their instructors there, or the choreographer for a period of time or whatever. And I would and I just loved teaching so much. Now it's definitely still a love of mine, teaching, and while it's easier to manage a one-on-one teaching and having one student at a time than it is to dedicate so much, because when I teach groups of children, I'm crazy invested. I'm spending so much time and energy doing that becomes my full-time mindset. You know what I mean? And in order to juggle teaching and having my own career, I have to kind of create some distance. So I don't think I'll ever stop teaching with that in mind. You know what I mean? To some degree, just because I love it so much, and just because I feel that it is part of what I'm called to do on this earth, is to offer that love and that encouragement and the knowledge that I've been given, to pass it on to whomever, whether they be older than me, younger than me, a baby, who knows? It doesn't matter. I feel like part of my gifting is to connect with other humans and, invest in them what's been invested in me. So the short answer to your question is yes.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for people wanting to pursue acting in musical theater, whether it be professionally or as just a side fun hobby?
Absolutely. And it's the same thing that I said earlier, and it's the same thing I tell people when I sign programs outside. It's those two quotes that I told you earlier. Comparison is the thief of joy. If you sit around and if you're moving through life and you looking to your left and your right, and you're always trying to keep in line with someone else, or you see somebody get something that you think you deserve, you will always be in a position of just, that downward spiral, that black hole. So comparison is the thief of joy. You cannot give yourself over to comparison. And what's for you will not miss you. If something is for you, you can go in that audition and forget every word. You can be bumbling, rumbling, stumbling over everything. But if that is what is supposed to be and aligned with you, if the stars supposed to align for you in that way, it will. And if it's not, you don't want it.
Yeah.
It's not for you. It's for somebody else. And and figure out how to be happy for the person that it ended up being for, because you don't know the cost that they had to pay to get to that place. Likewise, when you have your own success, you're going to want people to be happy for you from a genuine place, and acknowledge the fact that you worked your butt off and made sacrifices to get to that place. So I just think that we just need to be more of a community. Another thing is that confidence is a daily struggle. Very few people that I know actually wake up with a certain kind of confidence and positivity. You have to choose to be positive. You have to choose to be happy. You have to choose to be a version of yourself, in the face of, everybody's got struggles. Everybody's in seasons, whatever season you're in, you have to, and also give yourself some grace. I mean, I'm not saying slack off now, still have, prioritize your work ethic and work hard and, be disciplined, but, don't kill yourself at the same time. Like, if you're not enjoying your life, what's the point?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Like yeah, especially if you're pursuing something you really want to be doing and it's not fun anymore, then like maybe take a second and say, why isn't this fun anymore?
Yeah. Self-reflection, man.
Mm.
All day long. You got to do it. I mean, don't, of course, don't make yourself nuts, but self-reflection and self-exception,
Mm-hmm.
two sides of the same coin.
Yeah. So before we get to our last two questions, is there anything else that you would like to add? If you have any like social media platforms of your own that you would like to share with us, or just some extra thoughts?
I mean, I'm on Instagram. I'm always doing something. Right now I'm getting ready to start a new YouTube channel with my husband and talk
fun.
about the industry, because I felt like, personally, I'm a big YouTube person. I go on YouTube for everything. If I don't know something, I'm gonna go on YouTube and I'm gonna find, I'll find a 6 video. You know what I'm saying? That's what's gotten me through this pregnancy so much is YouTube. And I just feel like it's a really important tool that we have at our fingertips. And I didn't find a lot of what I was looking for, which was women of color who are also in the industry, navigating, building a family, and the challenges of being in the industry. And so I talked about, initially I was like, before COVID, I was like, I'm going to do a YouTube channel and I'm going to put up my nursery toys so everybody can see all my pretty things. And I'm going to do a DIY. And so initially it was just kind of like my own little silly thing that I was going to do for fun. But then once we both got trapped in here, I said, well, let's just do something together, and let's do it now instead of, waiting. Let's take advantage of all this time at home and do something that could possibly benefit somebody. So we're working on that now, and you can always follow me at Jennie Harney Flemming on Instagram, and I spell my name JennieHarneyFleming, just one M. You can follow me there. You can find out more about my the YouTube channel as things come. You can find out about my experiences with Hamilton. You can find out about my voice lessons. My husband is a world-traveled tap dancer who just released a jazz album. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, he's crazy. This man does so much. He does more than I do. He's but he's always on the go. He's always in a production. He's always hustling. And he is just one of the best performers that I've ever seen. He's also on my page. You can find him if you follow me, or his name is DeWitt Flemming Jr. So when you go on my page, you'll be able to find pictures of him all over the place.
A virtual shrine.
You know what I mean? I mean, when you love somebody, you love somebody, So those would be the two things that I would say are staples for me right now is my Instagram and my YouTube channel. That's my predominant way to keep in contact with folks, whether they be friends or family, or new prospective friends and family. You never know.
Yeah.
So
I ask the same two questions to everyone that comes through the podcast.
Okay.
The first is, what is your second favorite color?
My second favorite color?
Yeah.
Maybe gold. I don't know.
Gold. Ooh.
I know, it's weird, right? I love jewel tones, but I also love very muted tones. So I love like a turquoise or a burnt orange, but then I also love like blush, mauve, sage. You know what I mean? I'm like, I don't really like green, red, blue, yellow, like block colors. I like fused colors, hues of, I like vibes. And I also like a good old accent color. So that accent color is usually gold.
Yeah. Gold's a good, like a shiny gold, or like a muted gold.
Like a vintage gold.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Kind of
almost
gold.
brassy.
Yeah, something like, it's not, champagne or
Mm.
and something a little bit more muted, not so much like a yellow gold, but like, yeah, I think that's probably where
Yeah.
everything lands for me. Yeah.
Yeah. And lastly, what, in your opinion, is the best part of being a woman?
The best part of being a woman, I might have to say it's that women's intuition.
Mm.
It's that instinctive, the ability to smell something quick. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And be able to, you know what I mean? I mean, of course, that's a double-edged sword, because sometimes you wish that you could have just turned a blind eye to something. But
Mm-hmm.
it's just the ability to have discernment and then make a choice.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm either going to be graceful about this thing, or I'm going to let this, or I'm going to respond to it.
Mm.
I think that's probably the thing that I feel is something that I've always watched women in my family be able to
Mm-hmm.
navigate, whether that, and that's the thing that I think there's a power in being able to walk into a situation and smell all the things and get all the senses,
Yeah.
and be able to choose how you're going to respond to that thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, you
And I
walk
think
in.
yeah. I mean, that's one of the things about being a teacher that I feel has been one of my biggest strengths, is being able to sense from a child. I can sense what's going on here.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And my choice in how I respond to this thing has power to impact you in one way or another. I'm not going to be reactionary. I'm going to think this through.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Well,
Mm-hmm.
thank you so much for joining us today, Jennie.
Yeah, thank you, Heather. Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Oh, of course. You really do bring so much life to the stage, and you have such an incredible journey ahead of you, both in your personal and professional life.
Mm.
And thank you, listeners, for tuning in again today. If you have a moment, rate and review the show so that more people can be inspired by these amazing women that we get to talk about every week. You can follow us on Instagram at Women of Her Story Podcast. And you can also send us an email to womenofherstorypodcast@gmail.com. Until next week, be safe, stay healthy, and show the world what you're made of.